Hi guys, it's Mage. Before we get into this little video, just want to say this is a re-upload. DC, Warner Brothers decided to block the visuals in the last one, which is super annoying. Never had that issue before, not like this anyway. So I'm just gonna upload the audio, leave you with the waveform for this one because my points still stand, I think, and it's kind of annoying to just not have it there. But I am not going to try and fight the system. I have had to re-edit this video like 5 times and it's not worth it just for some clips over the top. Really annoying though. I read all the comments on the last video and was going to spend time this weekend replying to them, and now I can't. I still have access to those comments, so I can hypothetically reply to them. I'm just not sure where. If you want to re-leave one, feel free and I'll try and get back to that. If not, I did see them. They were all great. I agreed with almost everything that was posted. Most of you seemed to have similar thoughts to me, and even when you didn't, they were good comments. Everyone was having a decent, healthy discussion. I do love hearing your thoughts on this show, so apologies for that. I should have got back to them quicker, that's my fault. Anyway, so yeah, here is the waveform for the Harley Quinn Valentine's Day episode. I am sorry that this is what this has come to. I hope you have a good day. Enjoy. Hello, my name is Mage and welcome to Black and White Thinking. Specifically, welcome to my thoughts. Not going to call it a review because it's way too disorganised and shit for that, but welcome to my thoughts on the Harley Quinn animated series Valentine's Day special. Sorry this is like stupidly late at this point. I've been kind of busy and also depressed, so yeah, sorry. Anyway, let's get into it. Okay, so hi guys, welcome back to another Mage Rants About Harley Quinn video. How did you guys like the special? Was it a win for you or was it a bit meh? I guess I enjoyed it. I liked odd moments, but I definitely had a few issues. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about what I did like, and then I'm going to rant at you about the things I didn't, because why not? And let's be real, that's probably what you're all here for anyway. Some drama. No hate to the show, you know that I am the one that goes to bat for it, especially the first 2 seasons. I still hold them very close. But yeah, this wasn't my favourite episode, and I'll talk about that at the end. Off the bat, again, always feels like a pun to say that when I'm talking about DC. Off the bat, I do want to say that I appreciate being able to see animated Harley and Ivy being in love and bisexual and celebrating Valentine's Day. I don't want to disregard the crumbs I get because we don't get many, and I do appreciate that DC have let this happen, considering they're usually so terribly homophobic and generally awful to Harley and Ivy in terms of portrayals, in my opinion. So I am glad that we got this episode. I also enjoyed the length. I think that there are actually a few episodes in the show that could have really done with that 45-minute runtime. I'm curious to see if we're going to get any longer episodes going forward. I feel like there's more room for plot there. And again, there were definitely some episodes in the past that could have done with that extra 10-15 minutes to sort some stuff out. One of my minor gripes with this show is sometimes the conclusion. Plots in singular episodes can feel a little bit rushed. They had more time to maneuver in this episode, so I think that definitely made a difference overall. I liked most of the talking heads. I really liked Mira. I liked Lois and Clark. I liked Croc and Enchantress. I don't know. I liked the talking heads. I liked the concept of that. I definitely thought the Melania joke was a little liberal and definitely dated. I wasn't the biggest fan of that. She was drawn kind of terribly. On purpose, I imagine, but it's not 2016 anymore, so that, again, joke felt a little dated, but I like the talking heads. I enjoyed seeing Brett Goldstein and I enjoyed his cameo. He is an ally, as the kids say. He's actually on tour with Mae Martin at the moment, I believe. They've been doing stuff together, and I'm a big Mae Martin fan, always have been. Bisexual legend if there ever was one. If you don't know who Mae Martin is, Google that shit, watch Feel Good, highly recommend. The topless Byron bisexual vibes were nice. Brett seems to be a laugh, he seems to be a friend to the gays, and he is sexy. So all in all, really enjoyed that as a concept. even if, again, I wasn't a huge fan of the overarching plot in this episode. For example, I definitely enjoyed seeing more Bane. I've said on this channel many times that I fancy this Bane, even though he's dumb as hell. I guess that's kind of my thing. Dumb, huge men. I wish they kind of knew what to do with him outside of making Dark Knight jokes, but I did appreciate seeing him more. I also appreciate that the show has become more queer, more LGBT-centric as it has progressed. One of my least favourite things in the earlier seasons was that it was so subtextually queer, and a lot of people could miss that if they didn't know to look for it, especially straight people. I appreciate that there is more just general queerness in the air in the show. There isn't enough, and I would really appreciate hearing the word bisexual, but I'm kind of giving up on that at this point because I don't think it's ever going to happen. But yeah, I do appreciate that there is at least some other LGBT characters in the show outside of Harley and Ivy. I definitely enjoyed seeing Harley and Ivy being more explicit on screen. Side note, I'm definitely going to come back to that in a minute in terms of some things I didn't like, but I do appreciate that, like, they are being treated as if they are in a relationship with each other, romantic, sexual, emotional. It's nice to see. Even if I don't love the plot, I can close my ears and just enjoy the imagery in a lot of ways. I don't feel like we get to see Harley and Ivy as a couple enough. I know DC are kind of giving us a little bit more content over the last few years, but that is after a 20-year drought. I'm not going to reward them for the bare minimum, but it is nice to see. I really, really, really liked the designs for Harley and Ivy's outfits in this episode. I really like when they kind of shake up the designs, and I would like to see them in more kind of fun costumes, to be honest. Even Clay looked good in his little suit with his quiff. As far as hair goes, I always enjoy seeing Ivy drawn with a little kink in her hair. Curly, crazy, witchy hair is how I like her design, so more of that please. Flowers are always a nice touch. They were dressed to the nines in this episode, and it was dope. I liked the flashbacks to Arkham. Valentine's at Arkham is cute as hell, and it's nice to see kind of ideas that the audience implanted and they kind of hinted at in the past. This idea of Ivy being into Harley before Harley was into Ivy. It's nice seeing those put to screen. Weirdly enough, I actually wrote a first Valentine's at Arkham fic really similar to this that I never published, thank God. But yeah, weird to see it on screen after having written something so damn similar. I liked Etrigan. I liked seeing the rhyming thing again. I'm a big fan of kind of the demonic and dark in DC. I don't think we get enough of it. The joke puns were silly, and the show is silly, and it worked. It was definitely one of the parts of the episode that I think worked the most, and I really like this design. It's weirdly cute. I want this as like a Funko Pop. I think the plot was a little derivative, repetitive after season 2, I guess. And I want to get into that because I think it's important to be honest about this show and what I do like and what doesn't necessarily gel with me. This show seems to be falling into a very specific pattern, which is Harley does something totally fucking obnoxious. Ivy reacts. Ivy hurts Harley's feelings by reacting. Harley tries to make up for it and makes everything worse. Ivy saves the day. They make up. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. I'm not a huge fan, and I really don't want to malign my audience by saying this, but I'm not necessarily a huge fan of how this relationship has been portrayed since they have become an official couple. I definitely think the writers have missed the mark on a few things, and I'm going to go into them now. Firstly, I think Clay falling for his own butt was not as funny as they thought it would be. It's not that I was against it, but I think this storyline is kind of a perfect example of thinking you're funny when you're just being crass. And that's not to say that I don't like crass sometimes, or even like dark humour. I'm British, of course I do, but it didn't do much for me. There was one part I liked, which is really silly, but I hate the label fluid. It's not a label, it's just a way of not saying bisexual, but I did appreciate the I identify as fluid, me too joke coming from Clay because it was a pun. Thought that was funny. That was a good joke. And I love two dicks, so whatever. However, again, there's this kind of underlying frat boy written by straight man vibes beneath this show, and I think in the first 2 seasons that was a lot less pungent than it has been now, and I think that's because they don't really know what to do now that Ivy and Harley are a couple. They kind of lived in that will they won't they stage for a long time, and now that they're in a relationship it almost seems like the writers are struggling for content, for plot, and when they struggle to find plot, they usually resort to dick jokes, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not necessarily for me. Like, there is a line where dark humour starts to feel a bit Seth Rogen after a while, and there's only so much of that I can personally deal with. If I wanted to watch that kind of comedy, I would go watch Family Guy or South Park. I don't want to watch that kind of comedy, so I don't watch either of those shows. And again, I don't have an issue with things being crass or vulgar or dark. I just don't think it should be at the expense of real character arcs. And I think that's kind of been tripping them up over the last season, which might be an unpopular opinion. I'm not sure. I would like to know what you guys feel about that. I'm all for kind of Harley and Ivy being reckless and silly together. I'm all for the other characters being kind of jokey in the background, but there's definitely a line, and again, I feel like they write crassness when they've run out of ideas for real things. The show's really good at being emotionally hard-hitting when it wants to be, as well as funny, and that kind of emotional depth that made me fall in love with the show in the first place has definitely not been around as much in the 3rd season and in this special. And I know this special was set on Valentine's Day, so of course it was going to be, in quotes, sexy, but it wasn't sexy, it was just crass. And I'll get into why I really think that, beyond Clay falling in love with his own butt. So, that scene with Wonder Woman with the lasso of truth was kind of awful. Wonder Woman is not that stupid, which I don't know why they're playing her as such in this show. I don't know, not my favourite take, I guess. I think they're kind of playing her as like so egotistical that she doesn't look past the fact that that's Harley Quinn, and she lets the lasso of truth get stolen off her because she's so involved with being a hero, but not necessarily my favourite take. My biggest issue, and this is where we're really going to get into the crux of what pissed me off with this episode, is consent. So, using the lasso of truth on your partner who is trying to protect you from your own overbearing emotions is not cute, not even when Harley Quinn does it. It's kind of proof of the lack of healthy communication going on between Harley and Ivy right now, which is, again, back to my point, being silly shouldn't come at the expense of character arcs and relationship arcs, and I'm not really sure what the relationship arc is here in this story, which personally really pains me to say because I love Harley and Ivy, I love them as a couple conceptually. I would like to see them done well once in my lifetime, please. And this isn't the worst take of all the Harley and Ivy interpretations I've seen over the years, but it's slowly becoming not my favourite. And the consent issue in this episode is a big deal for me. Harley's use of that potion was not cool or funny, and it felt really icky. And honestly, I think the writers know that. I think they knew that that was going to come up because they went out of their way to have a conversation between Harley and Ivy where Harley was like, well, if adults are consenting and they have sex under a love spell, then what's the problem? And the thing is that that's not what happened. Nobody consented. Harley took the potion. She, without consent, used it whilst having sex with Ivy, and then everyone else ended up fucking each other because they were under a spell, essentially. There's no consent. I don't know how the writers can believe that's consent, and I go back to my kind of frat boy thing that I said before. Nothing more frat boy than not understanding how consent works. Like, it's weird enough that Harley used it on Ivy, it's even weirder in regards to how everyone in Gotham was affected. Like, if you actually start breaking down the logistics of that, outside of it being a comedy show, it starts to feel really, really weird. Like, fucking the nearest stranger because of a spell. Again, it's just not consent by any stretch of the imagination. Which kind of brings me to my main point. What the fuck are they doing with Harley? this is my main trigger, I guess. And I repeat my really don't want to alienate my audience comments from before. But I do not love how they are portraying Harley at the moment, how she has been written over the course of her official relationship with Ivy. There is something incredibly infantilizing and also a little regressive in how I feel she is being written. To the point where I kind of can't believe that Ivy puts up with it at this point, which is crazy, like crazy coming from me. Her inability, Harley's inability to communicate at the moment, has got to the point where it just isn't cute or quirky or manageable anymore. It's a genuine inability for her to be healthy in her behaviour patterns, especially when it comes to Ivy and Ivy's boundaries. And hypothetically, I don't have an issue with Harley acting like this if it is part of her arc, but it doesn't feel like it is. It feels like a repetitive story where she learns nothing, and the writers treat her as if she's a child who needs her feelings protected. I've spoken about this before, like on this channel, but Harley's behaviour in this show is very, mentally ill, coming from someone that is very mentally ill. And Harley is mentally ill, we all know that, that's like her character. But the writers tend to treat it as a joke, instead of something that kind of needs to be addressed within the narrative. They do this whole, that's just Harley, silly clown girl thing. And again, that feels just so infantilizing and doesn't really account for any of Ivy's feelings on this whole situation. It makes Ivy feel more like her carer than her girlfriend. She's just constantly cleaning up after Harley's chaos and emotions, after saying quite clearly in season 2 that she didn't want to find herself in that kind of relationship with Harley. It feels like a disregard for Ivy's needs that can't be addressed within the narrative because in canon, in this show's canon, Harley is just too sensitive to hear it. Which again, is super infantilizing, especially for someone that's portrayed with mental health issues. Just send her to therapy, please. Outside of the canon, and I think this is the biggest issue, is that the writers aren't really sure where they're going with the show, so they keep Harley in this doing selfish chaos mode because they can use it for easy plot fodder at the expense of Harley and Ivy's relationship and like actual connection. I don't know, do I sound like I'm talking shit? Do I sound like I'm just like triggered? I don't know, the whole of Harley's characterization at the moment has just been irking me. I'm pretty sensitive to how I enjoy Harley being portrayed. That's just who I am. I'm willing to admit that, but this Harley really hasn't been my favourite over the last season. Again, she feels like she has regressed from who she became at the end of season 2 to who she is now, midway between season 3 and 4. It's almost like everything she learned over the first 2 seasons was reset when she started dating Ivy officially. If that was part of her character arc, if that was something that was addressed within the actual text, I wouldn't have an issue with it. But it doesn't feel like it is. They haven't addressed it the same over season. They've just made Harley super sensitive and full of abandonment issues and even more BPD than she was in season 1 and 2, and she just doesn't feel like she's making much progress. And I know I potentially sound like a dickhead saying this, but it's kind of how I feel at the moment. I definitely feel like I need to rewatch season 3 and try and go back into it with a completely clear head, see if I can enjoy it some more and find things that I enjoyed about it more than I did the first time, but this is just kind of where I'm at the moment. I know that doesn't mean I'm gonna stop watching the show or anything like that. I am gonna carry on. I will be here until the end. But I definitely have some minor issues. I'm really hoping that with the stepping back of the 3 male showrunners, sorry to call them the male showrunners, but they are, I'm hoping that the writer's room expanding a bit over the next season improves the show. It's kind of up and down, right? With new writers, you never know which way it's going to go. But I am ready to see an expansion of ideas because I do think that Patrick and Justin and Dean are getting maybe a little bit bored. Like maybe they've ran out of Harley and Ivy stories to tell, so they're kind of just sitting on a pattern that they know works. Because it does work. I know that I'm in the minority. Most people don't think about this show as intensely as I do. They don't spend their life reviewing every episode. They didn't write a 2-hour essay on how great the first 2 seasons are. Like, I'm aware that I take shit too seriously. That's how media analysis works, I guess. And I understand that most people on a surface level will just enjoy it. And that's fine too. But if I'm being perfectly honest, as I said, wasn't my favourite. Definitely more upset than I would like to be about the concept of consent. Harley using the lasso on Ivy, not okay. Not okay to magically force your partner to tell you things that they're not ready to tell you. Definitely not okay to use love spells on them, even if you are the silly clown girl. And it's definitely not okay to inflict that on the rest of Gotham. I really don't mind the kind of gore, the death and violence, the jokes about Harley and Ivy just randomly killing people all the time. I'm okay with that because it fits very thematically into the show and it's a joke, right? When we start getting into kind of like rapey things, especially when the writers are male, characters are female, I can't tell you why. Maybe it's just because of how the patriarchy has affected me, but that definitely makes me feel weirder. Okay, I'm gonna stop ranting now. I'm really sorry if this just sounds like I'm bitching. I am a little bit. I didn't hate the episode. I know it probably sounds like I did, but the consent thing was just such a big hurdle. It kind of flooded the rest of my emotions about the episode. I'm gonna try and watch it again and see how I feel about it. Hopefully it won't upset me quite as much this time, but I think it's important for me to readdress all the episodes, like I said, with an open mind. And I definitely might, I don't know, do a stream or do a longer video or something at some point, kind of talking about my feelings on the show as a whole and how I felt on rewatch, etc, etc. But for now, that's it. Consent not there upset me. Harley being infantilized upset me. Everything else was fine. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It definitely wasn't my favourite episode. Outside of the consent thing, it definitely wasn't my least favourite either. Do really enjoy just aesthetically seeing Harley and Ivy as a couple. It feels like a childhood dream, even when it's done badly. Sorry if this has been a bit off base. All my notes are by hand. I've just been reading kind of my bullet points. This hasn't been scripted very well. It would have been another 5 days later if I did type it all up. So sorry if I've missed anything. Ask me down below about anything specific if you like. I'll try and get back to you. Maybe I should do a Harley and Quinn show Q&A at some point. That's just come to me now. Tell me if that's something that you find helpful. Maybe we can actually address like some specific things over the series then. You can share your opinions with me and I'll share my opinions on your opinions. I don't know. What do you think? My name is Mage. This has been a rambling mess. Thank you for watching. P.S. I have a Patreon that I've been posting some stuff on if that interests you. Feel really awkward mentioning it. Thanks for watching as always. Bye.